وأمرنا لنسلم لرب العالمين وأن أقيموا الصلاة واتقوه وهو الذي إليه ترجعون وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق ويوم يقول كن فيكون قوله الحق وله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله على كل حال. الحمد لله به تتم الصالحات. Greetings to our dear listeners listening or joining in from the YouTube live, and our dear listeners joining in from the Zoom live. Just an interlude. This is a program of the IOU Gambia Students Committee coming to you from the IOU online platform. We indeed honored to have our guest, Mr. Muhammad Al-Amin Sanneh, on the team or on the topic, weaponizing education in facing all challenges, a glimpse of studying with the IOU. Without further ado, just a brief and humble introduction of our dearest guest, Mr. Al-Amin Muhammad Sanneh. He is currently a member of the IOU Alumni Association and currently a bachelor's degree holder in education. And he is formerly the third president of the IOU Student Committee Gambia. And he is currently the country director of Al-Falaah Radio station, the Gambia. With that being said, we indeed very honored to have Mr. Sanneh on board, and we are quite optimistic. We can't wait to benefit from his gems. I'm totally sure, and I'm totally optimistic that justice will be done to present the topic. Mr. Sanneh, the floor is yours. Mr. Sanneh, you are muted.
Okay, I am heard now.
No. Sure.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن نبينا محمد صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sending blessing and salutation to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to all his household, his companions, and to all of us who followed his footsteps, and who follows his footsteps until the last day. Brothers and sisters, I greet you all, and I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Like my brother Muhammad says, I am Muhammad Al-Amin Sanneh. I am an alumni IOU, graduated from the Department of Education, having Bachelor's of Art in Education, and also a madrasa graduate, someone who graduated from madrasa education in the Gambia, and also studied English language for a year, and continued with my university education at the International Open University until I graduated, alhamdulillah. It's going to be a very brief session, inshallah. But I just want you to understand that you are not listening to a scholar, you are listening to a fellow student, someone who is willing to share his ideas with you, to learn and unlearn as well. And then I want us to share, we make it a session where we would discuss and share our ideas. And then I'm not sure I am going to say anything here that is unknown to you. It is just going to be a reminder of what we know already. So looking at the topic that I am given is a very big topic though, but we will try our best to make sure that we do our best to address the topic as expected. We have a topic called Weaponizing Education in Facing World Challenges, a glimpse of studying with IOU. I'm looking at this topic and the way it sounds, it's a very big topic. It's a very broad topic. And then even the time that I am given, an hour, may not be able to address the topic adequately. So like I said, we're just going to try our best to make sure that we discussed, and then we do our best to at least get closer to, addressing it, and then trying to also make some point out of the topic and things that will actually feel that we have a problem in our education, and there are things that we can do to make sure that we restore the sanity in the system so that the education will serve its purpose. Because recently how it is, the purpose of education is being defeated. And until we come back to the root of knowledge, and then the purpose, we teach ourselves the purpose, it will be difficult for us to bring back those glorious years and days where knowledge was very important, knowledge was a treasure, and then it was not only an information that people have, but it has shaped their personality, making them a different person. So, but some of those things are lacking, and they are missing in our system, and this is very unfortunate. And then we will try our best to make sure that we talked about some of these things. And before we go ahead, these are some of the outlines that we put here to make sure that we address the topic adequately. We will have an introduction, and we will, before we go into weaponizing education, I believe that we have to know actually what we say education, what does it mean? Conceptualizing education. And education also, what it means from conventional perspective or a secular perspective, and what education means from an Islamic perspective. We also have education and literacy. These are two interrelated, and these are two interchangeable words, and these are two words that are different, and people use them interchangeably without even knowing actually their meaning. Sometimes we even use them out of context, and we will, by the end of this session, inshallah, we will understand this. We will also deal with the purpose of education, the concept of knowledge. When we say knowledge, what actually does it mean? The root of knowledge, where does knowledge come from? The concept of knowledge in Islam. We will talk about the conventional or the secular perspective of knowledge, and also the Islamic perspective of knowledge. And then we come to a classification of knowledge. Are there different types? What are the types? Virtues of knowledge, seeking knowledge, what are the important? The fadlu al-ilmu, or talabul ilm. Major challenges in today's education system. This is where we come to our topic, rethinking education, what we should do to make sure that we restore the sanity into the system, and what makes IOU stand out. That will address our half of the topic, a glimpse of studying with IOU. So we will conclude the session, inshallah, and then we can interact and share our ideas. And also, yes. So, like I said first, we are talking about education. And when we say education, we actually have to look at it in a broader perspective to understand what actually it means. Because this word is not being confused. I see a comedy post sometimes, people will be saying, like, for example, in the Gambia, during our primary school, we will debate on education and silver and gold education. So most of the time those days, the winner mostly will go to, we prefer education over gold or silver. But recently we see some posts, people will be saying that, a comedy post, okay, God, please forgive me. If I had known, I would have chosen gold or silver. But that is something that we missed. That is something that we missed. When I saw this, someone posted, and I asked the person, I think you need to differentiate or distinguish between going to school and education. Yes, you go to school and having education, these are two different things. If you go to school, you graduated, and you are still maintaining that you made a mistake by preferring education over silver or gold, I will say that you went to school, you did not have education. So education is not merely, this is a famous a quotation from Nelson Mandela. It says, you see it everywhere. When we talk about education, the importance of education, normally we always talk about this. Education is the most effective tool that can be used to change the world. Nobody disputes this. But despite all of this, people are now bringing the idea of like, okay, I made a mistake by preferring education over gold or silver, because the meaning and the purpose of education is not being instilled in the minds and heart of learners. This is something, this is one of the weaknesses we have, and we will deal with it. Education also is not merely an acquisition of knowledge to satisfy man's intellectual curiosity. It doesn't mean that you will go there and have a certain information, memorize a certain information, understand a certain information. It doesn't mean that to satisfy your intellectual curiosity, because human being is curious, our intellect. We need always food. Our minds and soul need something and information to survive with. So education doesn't mean that you are going to go there and acquire those information in you. Just that. No, education is more than that. It's just more than having or acquiring an information, values and sort of like that. True education should train the sensibility of an individual. It should train a sensibility of an individual in such a manner that attitudes towards life, our attitude toward life, how do we approach life? How do we live our life? Our actions, the actions that we take, decision and approaches to all kinds of knowledge are governed by the spiritual and deeply felt ethical values of Islam. The true education should train us in this manner. So if you look at this, train the sensibility of an individual. It will train, that education will train that individual in such a manner that his attitude, his actions that he takes in life, the decision that he made, and also the approach to all sort of knowledge, all sort of information, all these acts are governed by a spiritual and deeply felt ethical values of Islam. Something has to be there. It must have a purpose. It must have some values that are instilled in the heart of and minds of learners, and that will transform a human being from one level to another. But if this is not happen, then education will be seen as just a mere information that we acquire. So we don't have the meaning. We don't even know the purpose of acquiring this information. At the end of the day, you see some comedy posts like that. We prefer silver or money over education. Now we understand conceptualizing education. Now let's understand when we say education, what actually does it mean? What do we mean by education? This is a process. Education is a process in which knowledge, skills, ideas, facts, values, etc. are imparted and learned. Knowledge, skills, ideas, facts, these are transferred or transmitted from one person and another. And this process is what we call education. It's a process. This process can take place in either a formal, when we say formal, it's a classroom setting. Maybe you go to school, you enroll, you are admitted, you wear uniform, you go and sit in the classroom, you are taught. This process can be a formal, we call it a formal, or it can also be an informal setting, which is done through modeling and observation. When we say education, it doesn't only mean that you go to the classroom, you sit down, you are taught how to write and read, and then although it doesn't mean that. Education can also be by modeling, by observing someone and then imitating the person. This transmission can be done even without the person who is being copied is not even aware. It can happen. Like, for example, most of our parents, our interaction with our parents, we learn some values. We are not just sit down, we are not told to sit down and then the parent will sit somewhere and then talk to us. It doesn't happen normally that way. But through our interaction, our observation, we learn through their actions, how they talk, how they react. We learn from this. This is also an informal way of education. It's a process. And through this observation, we learn values, we learn etiquette, we learn some characters from our parents or the adults or the people that we deal with. Education also is a process that involved, this process that we are talking about, education, it involves teacher, which is called educator or an instructor. It also involves students, which is called a learner or educated. It's also involved knowledge. It's like three things has to be there. These are three fundamental ingredients that has to be there. A teacher must be there who will transmit, who will give, and a receiver must be there who is a student, and something has to be there that has been transmitted, which is called knowledge or a value or an information that is transmitted or exchanged. And when we say exchange, it means because teaching, when I say transmitted, it's only like from one person to another, but exchange means both of them learn from one another. It's like they exchange ideas, they communicate, they share, they understand, they give feedback. This process is called education. So if you look at this, it is called 3 E's of education. It is coined by Dr. Bilal Philip, 3 E's of education, which involve teacher, educator, educated, and education. 3 things has to be there for the process of education to occur. Now, education from an Islamic perspective. The other meaning can have both, but more of like a conventional perspective. But this one, we want to take it from an Islamic perspective now. So from an Islamic perspective, scholars define education with 3 interrelated Arabic words. And these are very profound. Look at this very well. Ta'lim, tarbiyah, and ta'dib. Look at this. These are very big, they are very broad words, and they are very deep as well. Ta'lim, what does ta'lim mean? Ta'lim means impartation of knowledge through teaching and learning. Teaching and learning, just like the process that I talked about. It's like the conventional definition of education only have a strong connection with this word, ta'lim, where information and knowledge is being transmitted, exchange between a learner and a teacher. That's why it says an impartation of knowledge through teaching and learning. When you look at the word tarbiyah, implies that a state of spiritual and ethical nurturing in accordance with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how scholars of Islam define tarbiyah, education. This tells us that education is beyond just giving information and receiving information. It has to do with our spirituality. It has to do with our character. It has to do with building our character, formulating our humanity, our personality. That's why it's a state of spiritual and ethical nurturing in accordance with the will of Allah. This has to do with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the values, the characters, the personality of Islam, of a Muslim is being transmitted, is being nurtured in the minds and heart of a person. You have the other word called ta'dib. Ta'dib also is very profound. On the other hand, ta'dib means the development and enhancement of sound moral behavior. Look at this, development, enhancement of a sound moral behavior. Now, look at these 3 words now. When you talked about the conventional aspect, it talked about only, exchange of information, exchange of knowledge, exchange of values from one person to another. But Islam looked at education in the broader perspective. It also acknowledged that it has to involve transmission or exchange of information, but it also needs what we call spiritual nurturing. You instill iman in the person, and also try to reform and build his moral aspect as well. His personality, shape his personality to become a Muslim. He become an individual who is a good Muslim, has good moral. You work on his moral, not just to give him information and just go like that, and the person become a clever devil. We will get there. Now we go to education and literacy. Sometimes we had that some of our brothers or sisters will be like, our parents are not educated. That is an insult. For me, I see that it's an insult to our parents. They are educated, but they don't have, most of them don't have literacy. And literacy is basically means ability to write and read. When you are able to write something and you are able to read something, you have what is called literacy. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, now let's say, for example, is it correct to say the Prophet was not educated? That is very wrong. He's the most educated person in the world humanity has ever seen, but he doesn't have literacy. He was an ummi. An ummi is not blameworthy. It's not something that is shameful. It's not, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described Rasul al-Ummi, a prophet, a messenger who is illiterate, unlettered. So it's not something that we can, it's not something that is shameful. It's not. Uneducated is shameful, but illiteracy is not something that is shameful. It's good, it's important. But despite the Prophet being an illiterate or unlettered, he was the most educated person humanity has ever seen. Now you see the difference between education and literacy. Even by looking at the Prophet ﷺ, learning from him, you will realize that there's a gap, a big difference from literacy and education. So for us to say that our parents, because of there was a limited accessibility to education, we said, our parents were not educated. No, they are educated. They are not literate. That's why I said when I was defining education, I said it's a process that can take either in a formal setting or an informal setting. And that informal setting involves what? Imitation, modeling, observation. And our parents were doing that. They learned values, they learned, good attitude, they learned how to deal with issues, how to deal with different people, how to react to certain situations. They learned this not in the classroom, but by observation, by modeling, by copying from people, from adults, for example, their parents. They have some of this. And then, funnily, for us, with all this, what we have, the literacy that we have, and the education that we claim to have, our parents, despite calling them uneducated, they are more mannered than us. They have more values than us. Their attitude is far better than ours. So to say that they are uneducated is an insult to them. I think we need to look into that properly. So education, we define literacy. That is just an ability to write and read. Education develops, look at education, what it does to a person. It is more than just reading and writing. It develops, nurtures, prepares look at this word, all of man's physical, 1, mental, 2, psychological, 3, spiritual, 4 aspect for this life. It prepares man for this life. It nurtures and prepares man, all of his faculties for this life, and also provide him with basic tools to deal with the challenges of the world. Skills, knowledge, ideas, values, all those sort of things education provide that to a human being. But also, it doesn't work on only his memory. It works on his physical body, his mental, his psychological and spiritual aspect. It works on this. And with this, when all of these are nurtured with things that are needed, the person is prepared and is given a tool to deal with whatever challenges he finds himself, whatever challenges he finds in the world. And of course, through education prepares man to shoulder his divine responsibility on earth and prepare him for the next life. Through education should do that. Through education, that doesn't help you or doesn't prepare you for the life of this world, because we are all khalifas on this earth, and we have certain responsibilities that we need to take care of, or we shoulder. And those roles that we should play as Khalifat, we should do it. But our education, through education, should to give us tools to able to function and to be able to shoulder this responsibility of Khalifiyya accordingly. And also that education should also prepare us just for this life. And that's a problem. That is a problem. It should not also prepare us for this life. It should also give us a tool to prepare us for the life after this one. Because at the end of the day, we will die and we are going somewhere. Now, purpose of education. Why do we go to school? Why do we learn? What is the purpose? What actually, when we say education, what is the purpose? Why do we go to school? Islamic education is different from that of a secular education. They are different. Secular education and Islamic education are different. But when we will get there, but you will realize that secular education, Islam doesn't have much distinguishing factor, or it doesn't differentiate what is called secular or non-secular. Islam has a little interest in this, but secular does. Secular education divorces itself from religious belief. As you all know, when you say secular, it has nothing to do with God, it has nothing to do with religion. It divorces itself from religion. It's only depend on human intellect. The concept of when we say religious belief, the secular education differs from this. The concept of a supernatural being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. Secular education normally does not deal with this. It deals things that are material, things that are seen, things that are touched, things that are sensed. Thus, there is no definite purpose. When you look at the secular education, there is no definite purpose for education. No definite. Although you will see that most of them, they all have one thing in common. And what is that? Preparing man for the life of this world. They will give you skills, they will give you information, but all of them is just to prepare you for the life of this world. And the moral aspects are not given priority to. And the life of next is not talked about. So the purpose is not definite, but if you look at it, despite their differences, you will have one thing in common. It prepares man just for the life of this world. The aim of education, when you look at the Gambia's education policy, 2016 to 2030, the one that we have currently, it includes the aims of education there. It's a list of aims, but I don't have to put all of them here. But I see something that is very good to me. Unfortunately, we are not being seeing it, but it is there, and I liked when I saw it there. It said, cultivate sound moral and ethical values in the development of life skills. Look at this. There are two things that are very important to me here, or three. Sound moral, ethical values. Look at this, sound moral, ethical values. These are very important in education. So you can see that the policy, our policy, Alhamdulillah, doesn't only focus on preparing man just to have education, you have skills, you go out there. It tries to give you a sound moral. But the problem is, when you hear this word, sound moral, ethical values, it's very good to hear. But listen to it very well. When we come to now determining what actually is sound moral, what actually is ethical value, what is ethical, this is where the problem comes. So what actually do they define, would they see or determine as sound moral? Or what actually do they see and define as ethical values? This is the problem, because their own definition of ethical values and their own definition of moral, sound moral behavior might not align with the ethics, values, and morals of Islam. There could be differences. So, but anyway, it is good, because when you look at our Gambia here, religion plays an important role in our life. So normally when we say Jika Kendo, sound moral, ethics, we normally try to gauge it with that of Islam. It has a contradiction with Islam. Normally we reject it. So you can still have a benefit of the doubt and say that this aim here is absolutely good. Now you come to the purpose of education in Islam. The reason why we are talking about this, because for you to weaponize education, for you to, make education a tool to deal with the challenges of the world, you need to know why you are learning. You need to know what actually you are learning, why you are learning this. That's why I am bringing the definitions here and also the purposes. Islamic education is centered, as I said, secular education divorces itself from a religious belief. But Islamic education is centered on the doctrine of its scripture. And when we say scripture, we're talking about the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. In the approach of Islamic education, it prepares man, as I said, to shoulder the responsibility of vigilancy. That is called Al-Khalifiyya on this earth, and instill in him the sense of servitude, ubudiyya. This is what Islamic education does to a human being. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ubudiyya to Allah, no anybody, not money, not any other power, ubudiyya to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. This is our declaration of independence. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Oh Lord, we worship only you and we seek help from you alone. So this is what Islamic education does to a human being, or this is what it instilled in the hearts and minds of a human being. And this process is done to a human being or a man in order to him to obtain happiness. Number one, happiness in this life and salvation in the eternal life of hereafter. So you look at the secular aspect of education, it only prepares man for this life. But Islam doesn't negate that. Islam doesn't negate the life of this world. It makes it very important. This is because this is a transition. This is where everything began. The way we live here will determine how we are going to live in the hereafter. So Islam doesn't negate the life of this world, because all of the things that we are created for us here, the sky, the earth, the rain that falls, the sea, the trees, everything, you look at it, there are things that we can explore and utilize to make this life better. So Islam doesn't negate things of this world, and also to better the life of this world. It has a special focus on this world, but it's also give priority for the lives of hereafter. Because whatever you do here, it will perish, it will end. The ultimate life is in the hereafter. So this life will not be negated, will not be left alone. It has to put into consideration, but we also would not forget, and we should give priority to the life of hereafter. Thus, the purpose of education in Islam is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. It's ibadah. The purpose is ibadah. And this ibadah, when you look at it, it might be a very simple word to you, ibadah, but this is the broadest word you can find. That's why it is defined as ismun jami'un. It is a name that, combine everything. It combines everything. Jami'un li kulli, everything ma yuhibbuhu Allah wa yarda. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves and pleased with it. So it doesn't mean that when we say human being is created for the worship of Allah, it doesn't mean that human being is created to go and pray in the mosque. Just prayer is just beyond that. Even what we are doing right now is worship. We go to school is worship. So whatever you do in life, either it is a prayer or fasting, education or whatever, the moment it has a requirement, ma yuhibbuhu Allahu wa yarda. It pleases Allah and He loves it. And how do we determine that? We go back to Quran and Sunnah. That will tell us that this act or this act and that act is pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. So like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created man, I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. So if you look at this worship, we are created here. So whatever we do in this world, any activity, either is related to education or it's not related to education, we have to put the what we call al-ihsan. Al-ihsan. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you are seeing it, and if you don't see it, He sees you. You have this mentality, what we call al-muraqabah. You self-evaluate, you evaluate yourself, you check on yourself, al-muhasabah, and you account yourself always. So when you have this mentality, whatever you do in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is put in your mind. You have it in your mind, and you have this belief that He's watching you. So whatever good thing you are doing, you have the good intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you do it as you are required to do, and there you have you obtain reward from Allah. So you can see that the word worship is very broad, and it's had a broader meaning than just prayer and fasting. So in the first World Conference on Muslim Education in Jeddah, it's happened in 1977, education is stated to mean for balanced growth. Look at this meaning. These are very deep. Look at it very well. It says balanced growth of total personality. Look at it, total personality of man through the training of man's spirit, intellect, rational self, feeling, bodily senses. Look at it, what education does, or what education should do to a human being. It caters, meaning the education caters for the growth in all aspects of human being, including spiritual, intellectual, imaginative, physical, scientific, and linguistic, both individually and collectively. And it also incorporates all these aspects in a holistic system of education towards goodness and the attainment of perfection. And when you look at this last word, attainment of perfection, doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. We can never be perfect. There is this saying that perfection is unattainable, but it's worth trying for. You can never be perfect, but you have to always pursue perfection. You always have to follow to be perfect, but you can never be. So it continues. It says the ultimate aim lies with all this about education. It said the ultimate aim of education lies in the realization of complete submission to Allah as the creator on the level of individual, community, humanity at large. So you look at this. When you look at this, you realize that they also agreed that the purpose of education should be the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you talk about submission, we know when you say a Muslim is one who submit. When you say Islam is a submission. Now the concept of knowledge, because we talked about education, we are talking about, transmitting information, transmitting values, transmitting this, transmitting that, exchanging this, exchanging that. Now, what is that knowledge that we are talking about? That is that knowledge that has been, transmitted in the process of education. What is that knowledge? That is very important. That's why I bring that, because in order for us to weaponize education, we actually need to know what we learn, and we actually need to know why we learn what we learn. Knowledge means fact. It means fact. It means truth. These are all words that are being used to define knowledge: information, awareness, deep familiarity, understanding, and or a justified true belief. This is defined by Plato, a justified true belief. And then it says, this knowledge, all of these things are gained or acquired through experience, education, or training. Now, knowledge is acquired in a cognitive process. All of this definition, truth, information, awareness, they said it is acquired through cognitive process, our mental processes, such as perception, things that we perceived, perception, discovery, reasoning, communication. And when you talk about communication, there are three things I want you to underline or understand. That is sharing, understanding, and feedback. Sharing, understanding, and feedback. So if you look at the process of education, this is what happened: teaching and learning, sharing from teacher, or from the sharing from teacher and from the students, understanding what is being shared, and feedback. Feedback has to be given for us to be ascertained that what we have is actually retained. So, but that's one thing that also we should also focus on when we talked about knowledge, how it's acquired, divine inspiration or revelation, wahi, Quran and the Sunnah. So if you look at the secular perspective of knowledge, they only talked about knowledge as information, blah, blah. And then when you talk about gaining or acquiring it, this revelation is sidelined. It is not talked about. It is sidelined. But in Islam, we have to put it there, and we will get there. Now, where does this knowledge come from? Where does it come from? When we talked about knowledge, where actually does it come from? What is the root? Where does the knowledge come from? The root of knowledge, where does it come from? The secular view, they only talked about empiricism and experimentation. When you talked about empiricism, it is something that can be sensed in mental processes, things that you can think of, you sense, you see, you touch, the mental processes, and things that also is put into test. That is experimentation. When you test something, like for example, if you have a paint, you have a black color and white. If you want to produce ash color, you mix the two colors, and when you mix the two colors, you have ash color. If you mix black and white, you produce what is called ash color. So this experimentation, testing, they said knowledge is acquired through this. This is the root of knowledge. When an experimentation is occur, the results that comes out of it is knowledge. So in order for us to say knowledge is this or that, the root has to be tested first. Or empiricism, it has to be a mental process. So let's see, for example, if you focus only on this, that's why they say science is established upon facts that are variable. Things that are seen, things that are dependent on each other. While religion, I omit the word religion, while religion is based on subjective faith, which cannot be evaluated by objective method. Religion is just a subjective faith. So if you look at the concept of or the secular view on where knowledge comes from, or the root of knowledge, it totally negates the concept of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not there. What again? The revelation is not there. So if, for example, knowledge, the root of knowledge can only be acquired by mental processes. It can only be acquired by experimentation, or things that can be seen, touch, feel, and things like that. So where is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this? Where is angel in this? Where is the jinn in this? Where is even a soul in this? You cannot see it, because some of these things cannot be experimented. How do you experiment that God exists? How do you actually, through this empiricism, how do you know that God exists? Or how do you, because you may realize that, like all of us, we know that God exists, but have we ever seen him? Do we know how he looks? Do we know which color he has? Do we even have, do we even know how it smells and something like that? We don't know, but we believe it. So to secular view, this cannot be knowledge, because when you look at the two principles, empiricism and experimentation, it totally negates the concept of God, the concept of angel, because you don't see angel, you only hear about them, but you never see them. You don't even know how they look, unless you go to the hadith and you look at the description given by the prophet. But even though the secular view of knowledge negates this aspect, likewise the soul, who knows how the soul is? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, They have asked you about the soul. Tell them, this is my affair. And you have not given knowledge except a little. So the secular view of the root of knowledge has all totally negated this aspect. So, but in Islamic view, when we talked about the root of knowledge, where knowledge comes from, it's basically revelation, inspiration, Quran and the Sunnah. This is where knowledge comes from. It's come from Allah. You cannot deny that. It comes from Allah. It is either through revelation or an inspiration. The revelation, for example, to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. An inspiration, for example, the mother of Musa. وأوحينا إلى أم موسى أن أرضعيه فإذا خفته عليه فألقيه في اليم ولا تخافي ولا تحزني. This is not she was not a prophet, but she was being inspired, and a set of information was given to her. So when you talked about the root of knowledge, it's actually from Allah and through revelation, Quran and the Sunnah. So in the ayah, Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. When we say he was asking the angel to bow down for Adam, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. He was the first human being created. And then he was taught all the names. And when he presented this to the angel, he said to them, أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they could not. And they say, قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا. They admitted that. They said to Allah, we don't have any knowledge except that which you taught us. So you realize that knowledge actually comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ. Another verse also comes, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. When the Prophet was asked about the soul, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Look at this verse. Human being has not been given much amount of have not been given knowledge except a little one. And this is very interesting. Last time I was watching a lecture sort of. It's a series of knowledge that talks about the cosmos, the universe. And then it says that the universe has almost 13 billion years of existence. The universe has 13 billion years. And then, last year, NSA, that institution in America, they have some certain pictures that we took in the universe somewhere very remote. That's such a picture from such a place was the first time it has been known to human being. And there are a lot of things that we know. They were celebrating it. It was a big achievement for them. It was a big achievement in the area of science and technology. They were celebrating that. But finally, what they admit was what we know about the universe. If you judge it, it is less than 5%. Imagine, for 13 billion years, what human being knows about the universe is less than 5 years. Sorry, it's less than 5%. Look at this verse. Allah says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And we are saying that with all of this advancement in technology and science, we know that we know a lot about ourselves, about the universe. But look at this. Even the people who don't believe in Allah said what we know about the universe is less than 5%. When I heard this, I said, Subhanallah, Sadaqallahu al-Azim, وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Except a little. Now, the concept of knowledge in Islam. From the Islamic point of view, knowledge is the understanding of religion. It is very brief definition, but you have to go deep and understand what actually it means. Knowledge is the understanding of religion. And when we talked about religion, we said Islam. What does it mean? It means knowing Allah, the Creator, His names and attributes, knowing and understanding the path that leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that path is Islam. That path, it is Islam. You only go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the path of Islam, Quran and the Sunnah, the prescribed way. You don't have to invent your own ways to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to follow what you should follow to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. This is my path. Follow it and do not follow so many other paths, and you become deviated from my path. And when we talk about understanding of knowledge, we're talking about knowing and understanding pillars of Iman. We're talking about knowing and understanding the pillars of Islam. We're talking about knowing and understanding the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over us. And what is His right? As the Prophet ﷺ said to Mu'adh, his right over us is to worship him without associating any partner with him. And also our relation, how we relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is understanding this is also knowledge. Knowing and understanding the purpose of creation. This is the area that most of us are confused, especially in the current world that we are. People don't even know why they are here. That's why a human being can just jump up one day and commit suicide with a very foolish reason, because he doesn't understand why he is here. You are there, you are a businessman, you lost a profit, pim, you commit suicide. You have a problem with your girlfriend, he dumps you or she dumps you, boom, you commit suicide, because you actually don't know the purpose of life. You don't know why you are here. So this life would be meaningless to you. You think that having cars, buying cars, going to party and stuff like that, this is why we are here. And the moment those things are not attained, life is meaningless to you. And even those are attained, now you tend to question now. You think that the purpose of life is to have all of this. Now you have all of this. Now what is left? That's why you see confusion everywhere. People have all of this, but now they still question why we are here. And they're still adamant or refuse to go back to Allah for him to tell them why they are here, but they refuse. Now we come to classification of knowledge. Scholars, like I said, they don't want to delve into Islamic or non-Islamic knowledge, because all of this are Islamic. It depends on where you take it from or how you present it, but they are all Islamic knowledge. But what they do is here is very significant. They divide it in terms of need and importance. So they classify knowledge, one as personal obligation, the other as communal obligation. The personal obligation, what we call fardu ayn, the knowledge that we need to acquire. If you are a Muslim, it is obligation on you to acquire. You have no excuse. This has to do with knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief. You need to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to know about the practices, the ibadat, how to pray, how to fast, how to give zakat, hajj, and other social relations and things like that. These are things that you don't have excuse to say, I don't know. You have to know and you have to practice them. These are classified as personal obligation. This has to be acquired. It doesn't matter which field you want to study. It doesn't matter what you want to do in life. This, as long as you are a Muslim, these things you have to know. So there's also what they call communal obligation. They call it fardu kifaya. It means if a certain, like for example, in a Muslim community, this type of knowledge or this aspect of knowledge might not be fardu, might not be obligation upon everybody. But though we need it, so if a particular portion of a society know it and they are able to satisfy us in that area, then the other members of the community are not blamed. They will not be blamed, meaning they will not be sinful for not knowing this, because there are already people who know these areas and they suffice us in that area. For example, a detailed knowledge of Islam. To become a scholar, a mufti, you become a big alim, it's not obligation upon each and every individual. But if a society doesn't have anybody who has this detailed knowledge of Islam and they have the opportunity to do so, then they will be sinful. But if they have a certain people who have this and they are able to satisfy them in that area, then the rest of the community will be safe. For example, medicine, business, engineering, and finance, and things like that is not obligated upon each and every individual, each and every one of us. But there should be certain people who actually should have this knowledge. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, iqra wa rabbuka al-akram." This is very important. Look at this. The scholars say within these two verses, we all know that this is the first verse that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad when he was in Ghar Hira. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord. In the name of your Lord who created. They said this aspect of read, it is talking about the ilm or the knowledge that is fardu ain, that is personal obligation, just like what we said. But the other aspect, iqra wa rabbuka al-akram, recite or read, and your Lord is the most generous. They said, iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. This has to do with the personal obligation, knowledge that is personal, that is obligation obligated upon each and every one of us. They said, iqra wa rabbuka al-akram, read for you, and your Lord is the most generous. They said here, he talked about other aspect of knowledge. Now go there and learn about the world. Explore and utilize the resources that we are giving to you. All this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have created everything for you, but I have created you for me. So all these blessings that are here, go and explore, learn and how to utilize all these things. It is important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيُنْفِرُوا كَافَةً فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ وَلِيُنْذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ. And it is not for the believers to go forth to the battle at once, for there should be a separate of every individual of them. Like a whole community cannot go and move to go and learn, but a certain portion, just like what I say, Fardu Kifaya, a certain portion of a society must go learn and have a detailed knowledge of this, and those people will be able to suffice the entire community. Now, virtues of knowledge. In Islam, education, like teaching and learning, these are very noble and important acts of worship. And in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said the tuyur, the birds and the fish in the sea, all of them praise for the seeker of knowledge. This is very important. And then you see another hadith, for example, the best of khayrukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allama. The best of you is he who learns the Quran and teaches it. And the best of humankind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet says, is the one who is most beneficial to humanity. Khayrukum khayrun nasi anfa'uhum lin-nas. And you also look at the ulama, the virtues of ulama. The ulama and believers are raised high above by virtues of their belief and knowledge. Yarfa'ullahu alladhina amanu minkum walladhina utul ilma darajat. And you also see that the ulama that the Prophet said, al-ulama warathatul anbiya, they are the inheritors of the Prophet. Al-ulama warathatul anbiya lam yuwarithu dinara wala dirham innama warathul ilm. They have not inherited dinar or dirham, they had inherited ilm, knowledge from the prophets. Now, the ulamas are also attested to be the most conscious of Allah. Innama yakhshallaha min ibadihi al-ulama. Now we come to the major challenges. Okay, I talked about education, the definition of education, but let's all look at this. The world that we live in right now, our challenges, the system is less emphasized, or is less emphasis on morality, building personality, building characters. People are being educated, people are going to school, they are learning, they are this, they are that, but morals are lacking. You look at the society, how it is. You realize that people are just gaining information, they are just acquiring information, but the actual purpose is not there. It is also fewer skills based, hands-on learning. The education also is fewer. When you look at it very well, you will realize that skills are not being taught much. That's why people will graduate from school. They will graduate from school and they will be struggling to find employment. Even people who graduate from master's degree, with bachelor's degree, sometimes even PhD, will be struggling to be employed. Imagine if those people are given a required skills to live in this world. Are we going to be here complaining much about unemployment issue? You go to Nigeria, you have more than 20 million youth, and unemployed youth, and it becomes a major problem, especially in Africa. It becomes a problem. People are just graduating with certificates, and they are sitting down and saying, we don't have job. Imagine if those that are studying business in their first or second year, government provide a scheme for them. For example, you give them a startup, a capital for them to start a business. That would be a practical aspect of their education. And it has to be a required thing that they will do in their field of study, in their studies. You give them a capital setup, let them go and set up a small business. Within 2 or 3 years, and you evaluate how they are going to do, what they are learning, and they will practice it somewhere outside. Let's see if that is happening, right? Another aspect of areas that if we do this, the moment those people graduate, are they going to be struggling or sitting home because of they are not employed? They will not. It is also the major problem. Another problem is education is exam centered. people are focusing on the test. Students' interaction with their teachers is for teachers to tell them which area will become in the exam. And at the school also, the only thing they can be proud of, the only people they can say that we have best schools is to graduate with students who have A's, A+. That's the only thing people are focusing on. That's why you go to school, people focus more on grade 9 students. They focus more on grade 12 students because this is a national exam or a West African exam where everyone will know, okay, Gambia performs, blah, blah, blah. We only look at the statistics. You know, it's more of an exam-centered education than a moral-centered education. So you also see something that is very important, which is called lack of career guidance. This is very important. Many people are studying in their field of study. If you ask them why you are here, they don't know. They actually don't know. They just graduated from high school. Their parents say, you are going to study accounting, you are going to school political science, you are going to study law, they don't even know why. They are school. They are going to school, going and coming. That's why those people are just having less interest in education. The dropped out is increasing. You know why? People don't know why they are learning what they are learning. So career guidance is very important. And the last one, and this is particularly Gambia, the motivation of teachers. And this is very scary. It is not being realized right now, but let's look at it. Look at it. In next 5 to 10 years, these results will come. You know why? Teachers are not being much motivated. Teaching in this country is the last option. It's secondary for the students that are graduated from school. If you are a teacher in school, ask the students, what do you want to be? What do you want to be in future? If you have anyone who will tell you I will be a teacher, it will be only 1 or 2. Because teaching is not a very lucrative job in this country. So what causes that is people are being taught and prepared for the life of this world, to be employed and be rich. So if they look at the field of teaching and they said it's not that lucrative, they don't have any interest in it. And then also those who sacrifice to be in there are less motivated compared to their compared to other fields. You hear that people have been demonstrating here, complaining teachers' salary is this, teachers' salary is that. So they are struggling. That's why you go to college, go and see the Gambia College, the training school. Most people you see going to college straight from the senior school, ask them, they don't have the requirement to go to the university. Most of them don't have. So they don't have any other option because they don't have any skills. So they say, let's go to Gambia College. They will go to Gambia College, blah, 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 and they are graduated, qualified teachers. You dump them in the schools. Some of them, majority of them, those young teachers, you see some, I'm not saying that all teachers are like this, but go and see. Those with F students, E students are the ones going to the teaching field. And our children are given to these people. Tomorrow, in next 5 to 10 years, what is going to happen in our teaching field? This is a problem. So teaching, it has to be a business. We have to put fun in teaching for people to actually be motivated. We have good teachers in our schools. Otherwise, the people that are in our teaching field, subhana rabbil ala. Now you have rethinking. Now let's rethink what we should do. Number one, we have to put maximum focus on building characters, molding morally upright learners. This should be our major focus, because just like Frederick Douglass says, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So we have to focus on the young one, build their morality. Otherwise, you are going to have monsters as accountants. You are going to have monsters as lawyers. You are going to have monsters as businessmen. They will keep butchering and robbing us because they don't have any moral issues. They don't have any moral uprightness in them. They're just giving information and they are taught to how to reach in this world and how to live in a lavish lifestyle. So however they can get that money to be able to live in that style of life that you teach them, they will do it. You have monks that is in our medical field, creating diseases, spreading diseases in the humanity. You are going to have that because people are not morally upright from the childhood. And you have another aspect called making and giving meaning to education, instilling a sense of purpose in learners. People need to know why they are learning what they are learning. I know a few other friends who are mathematic genius, they will tell me, well, for us, we study all these mathematical formulas. I don't even know why we study them. I don't apply them in life. You don't give them the meaning, why you have to do what you are doing. So at the end of the day, all graduated, they will think and get confused. Why do I learn what I learn? They don't see any connection. So dropouts is being increased. A sense of purpose has to be instilled in the learners. They need to know why we are doing what we are doing so that they will understand and they will focus on it. And you come to another important aspect, Islamization of education, building an Islamized curriculum in both content and practice. This is very important. An Islamized education. Our curriculum has to be Islamized for people to have a good moral. Integration of STEM, hands-on learning, TVET, technical vocational education and training, practical education. Just like I said, people have to be given skills for them to practice what they teach, what they learn. Let them be taught in hands-on learning so that the issue of unemployment will be fought against. We all will be graduated here and we will be struggling to be employed and we will not have any employment. Provision of career guidance. People have to be guided what to do and what not to do. They need to be helped which area they are good at so that they will study that and they will have a passion in what they are doing. And professional development for teachers, they have to be motivated. They need to employ because the world is advancing and then you need to be innovative in your teaching. Some of those professional development are required for our teachers, and also they need to be motivated monetary aspect as well. So you now come to IOU. What we all said about the education there, you look at how IOU operates and what sort of education it delivers. It is a globally accessible university for all with over 1 million students across more than 200 countries in all continents of the world. And in IOU, you have authenticity, you have quality, you have affordability, you have flexibility. All of these are there. And the most important thing to me, an Islamized system of education that offers both conventional and Islamic studies, knowledge and skill, through a holistic approach that prepares learners, not just for the short and fragile life of this world, but also for the eternal life of the hereafter. That means feeding the soul to build strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A soul must be fed with something with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with a good information, so that it can connect to its creator, to have that relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the soul doesn't have this, it is fed with junk food, junk information. People live miserably in this life. They don't know the purpose, they are lost, they don't even know their identity. You see a man today, tomorrow he becomes a woman, and tomorrow he becomes a man. He or she will say, I am the only one who can decide who I am, whether I am man or a woman. Confusion of identity, it is happening. And then the other thing is give back to the community. Community service there in IOU. I want us to conclude with this. I saw something online. I don't know the authenticity of it, but it's kind of very important to me. And it is all talked about the issue of morals, the issue of purpose. It says at the end of World War II, this letter was found in a Nazi concentration camp. It is addressed to teachers. And it says, "Dear teachers, I am a survivor of a concentration camp. My eyes saw what no man should witness. Gas chambers built by land engineers, children poisoned by educated physicians, infants killed by trained nurses, women and babies shot and burned by high school and college graduates. So I am suspicious of education. My request is help students to become human. Your effort must never produce learn monsters, skills psychopath, educated illiterate. Reading, writing, arithmetic are important only if they serve towards making our children more human." This is very important to me. I don't know how authentic it is, but when I read it, it was like a food for thought for me. I think a lot about our education. I think a lot about what is happening in the system. C.S. Lewis also said, education without values, as useful as it is, seem rather to make man a more clever devil. A more clever devil. It's like all of this are talking about the same thing. And Hamza Yusuf said, where I am going to conclude, he said, until we deal with the fact that without teaching people meaning, without teaching people purpose, you create monsters. You create a disease known as a civilization. This is what happens when you divorce education from the sacred. And until we establish the true roots of knowledge and the true roots of learning and knowledge and why we are learning and what's the purpose of knowledge, we will see it get worse and worse. He said, Muslims have an incredible opportunity right now because we are a people that still, in spite of ourselves, because of our Prophet ﷺ, when he said, one of the signs of the end of time is that people will study for other than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Learning is not to make money. Learning is not to make more money. It was to make a better human being. Not for the sake of not for learning's sake, but for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very profound. This is very deep for me. And here I am going to conclude with this quotation. And thank you. Barakallahu fikum. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Jazakallahu khairan, Brother Muhammad Al-Amin Sanneh. Indeed, we have indeed learned a lot from your presentation. We pray Allah blesses you with tawfiq and grant you the blessing of this dunya and the akhirah. Indeed, the presentation was highly beneficial, and we have lots of questions, but unfortunately, we have reached the time allocated. And with that, we said, Jazakallahu khairan to Muhammad Al-Amin Sanneh, and Jazakumullahu khairan to our dearest listeners. So, Mr. Sanneh, would you have any closing remarks?
Basically, I've already made my closing remarks. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It also helps me a lot to learn, because I have to bring some things together. I also have to read. So it's some of us that are here sitting in the office, we are working, going around. Sometimes if you haven't taken some of these things, you hardly go out there and gather some little things that you have. But it helps me as well. And it's also improved me as a student as well. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Indeed, and I'm highly impressed by the content of the material. I am highly impressed. I have learned a lot, and I knew lots of work must have been put in place in the background in delivering such a content. So with that being said, I say Jazakumullahu khairan to you and our dear listeners. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.